Hi, Brumfield Believer family members, New York Times bestselling author Jamie Brumfield, and today we're going to talk about Love is Blind, the second part of the three-part reality slash experiment on Netflix. So you may have caught the first part, or you may not have yet. That's going to be released each week. And the final part will be released February 27th, next Thursday. So today they just released part two. So of course I watched it because I write romance and it's interesting. So I thought it would be fun to do it on this channel. I did part one last week, and I'll link that up in the video description below, or you can just check out our reviews, TV and movie review playlist. I have tons of reviews over there. So you can check that out as well to see that as well as other ones. So let's talk a little bit about Love is Blind Part 2, and there will be a few spoilers in here for both part one and part two, but I'll try to keep them very minor and not specific so that it won't ruin the show for you if you haven't seen it yet. So last week we saw a bunch of people, males and females, go into pods in part one of Love is Blind. We saw them go into these pods and they basically didn't see each other, and they were given, a week, maybe max a week and a half to pick somebody that they want to marry and propose to them sight unseen. So basically that's what the whole premise of the show is love is blind, is it, or is love not blind? So the men all got to choose who they wanted to ask to marry. Then they asked the women that they chose, will you marry me? The women said yes or no. Of course, all of that you can watch on the show. And of course, it's all in true reality television fashion, but through the whole show, they've been talking about how it's supposed to be an experiment. It's an experiment. It's an experiment. It's to see if people can truly start with an emotional connection first and then meet the physical and continue with that emotional connection as well as deepen that relationship into the physical, and then eventually getting married, and literally getting married in a turnaround of like 40 days. So this is a really fast turnaround. So they're basically on high speed as they do everything. Now, when you do read romances, I write romances in mysteries, but with my romances, it is high speed. Like you're reading a romance and they get into that romance pretty quick for most romances. That's typical of a romance. But is it typical in reality? Not usually. And I think one of the things that on my video from last week, most of the comments were they're waiting for the train wreck. I love that one. I love that comment saying, I'm going to watch because I want to see the train wreck. I was thinking the same thing, because when they get to the reality, to the real world, or the real world, the reality TV real world, what we see, we don't see it all, right? When they get to that, the real world, and their friends and their family and everybody else find out they're engaged to people that they never met before in person after this honeymoon stage that they had on this island, which was all in part one. Now, part two, they come to the real world. How did they fare? How did they do? What happened? And I think that really overall, it was really well done for what they're doing. It's a reality television show. So, but it's a reality television show that is causing people to make real life decisions. Getting married. I mean, it's like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, but The Bachelor and Bachelorette, they have longer periods to make the decision to get married, but really, do they? Not that much longer, right? And so, but only at the end of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and unless it's changed over the last 5 years since the last time I watched it, um, only at the end of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, they're not getting married. They're, getting engaged. Whereas on this show, they're getting engaged within a week and a half. And then this is in part one. And then in part one, they go off to an island and they have their honeymoon stage where, they get to know each other physically as well as emotionally. And then in part two, which just released today, that's what we're talking about today, they are released to go live together in the real world and to introduce their fiancés to their family, to their friends, to see how religion, race, ethnicity, cultures, all kinds of things, work, who's got the job and who doesn't have the job, to see how all of these interplay and interact when you get back to the real world. It's really easy to stay in the honeymoon stage, and they showed that in part one. And I think that was really a lot of the things that I kind of got from a lot of people when they watched part one, is like, they feel it wasn't real at all. But then when you go to the part two, you see the realism, you see the fights, you see them trying to make this work, because their whole goal is to get to the wedding and get married, and they've already made that emotional commitment, they've already started that dating. But, and I think they say it the best, Gigi on part two said it the best in the part two. This is one of the lines that she said, you're on high speed, you're racing through a relationship at such a fast pace that you want to make sure you hit all the marks. I mean, and you and I think the people in this show that were smart enough to put on the brakes and say, whoa, let's make sure we can get through fights, let's make sure we can get through conflicts, let's make sure we can do this, let's make sure we can do that, let's make sure our families are, I think those people might have more success than the people who were trying to continue the honeymoon phase through part two, when they came out into the real world and they had to live and work and live together and learn all these things. So part two was very interesting. I really enjoyed part two because they really did focus in on all of those aspects. And we did get to see that. We didn't get to see that in part one. And I think when it comes right down to it, for this series for Netflix, this message is for you, I guess. I am not a TV producer, but I am going to say that the reviews might have been better received if it was at least part one and part two were released together. And then you held off and released part three with the actual weddings for the next week. Because I think the bubble that they were in part one, people wanted to see, because they're watching a reality show, they wanted to see, even though it's dealing with people's real emotions, they wanted to see all of the steps to a relationship before getting into a marriage. And I think that would have made it a little bit better for some people who are watching the show. I personally, I'm a romance author. I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the part one, I enjoyed part two, I waited around for part two, and I will wait around for part three, just because I want to see who says yes and who says no. And I'm curious about you, my fans who are watching this channel. Who do you think is going to say yes and get married? And who do you think is going to say no and get married? I'm going to put my thoughts in the comment section below on this video. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I do feel that the people that really wanted to get down to the nitty gritty of the problems and the things that are going on in typical relationships, I do feel that those have a stronger chance of making it. Even in romance novels, we put our characters through real life. We get them in their honeymoon stage. We take them to, literally, this was like watching multiple romance novels play out at once. And of course, you didn't get to see all of it because, we didn't delve into one couple for the whole show. We delved into all the couples every show. So, you got a taste of all different, where they were all in, all different headspaces that they were all in. It was very interesting. And it's very interesting also to see how those who took it very seriously and those who maybe perceived they might have been taking it seriously. Like I said, we can't read people's minds, but they might have been taking it seriously, but they might have be perceived by the audience as not taking it seriously. I'm curious to know what you think. What do you think after watching part one and part two about part two compared to part one? Do you think it was good that they broke it up? Or do you think, would you have liked to see both of them together and then part three separate? Or do you like the process that they made? Um, do you feel that it would have changed your opinion about the show so far? Do you feel that, where do you feel about the different levels of everybody as far as where they were coming from when they came into the show and where they have graduated? Because in a romance novel, again, I'm comparing this to a romance novel because um, and I know that it's a reality television show. I know it's not a romance novel, but I see a lot of those peaks and valleys from romance novels in this show. As I was watching, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so that is, something that we would do in a romance novel. So, as I was watching it, I just kind of got that feel. And the thing is that you want them to deal with real life, and so I really do appreciate that they did bring them out to the real life and let them show that and get that feel. What did you think? What did you think about this series so far, part one and part two? All in all, I think I actually kind of like it. I do. I liked it. Um, of course, it's a reality show, and there's going to be things that are, exaggerated maybe a little bit, or longer pauses as people are trying to figure out what this person's really thinking. And you have to wonder if they're putting on the reality persona or if they're actually being themselves. I mean, of course, it's a reality show, and you feel the same way when you're watching any other reality show. I mean, that's what it is. They're not playing a character, they're playing themselves, either true to themselves, exaggerated, or whatever, but they're playing a side of themselves in the reality show. And I think that's what really attracts us to reality shows when it comes right down to it, is to see a peek into people's lives. It's why people watch YouTube videos sometimes, because you're seeing a peek into our lives. So, I mean, there is a fascination with that, seeing a peek into people's lives. And I think that's one of the reasons why we like them. But all in all, I think it was a really great part two, and I love that. I don't like to see drama, but as a as person in a relationship, as a person who's been in many relationships, there's drama. It just is what it is. There are fights, there are arguments. People don't always agree, and if you're well matched, it's usually your opposites that attract, because one picks up where the other drops the ball, and the other one picks up where the other one drops the ball. That's makes for a good relationship. But then there's also going to be passion and heat, and there's going to be arguments. And when people argue, usually that heat or that argument is a show of, hey, I'm putting up a fight for us, even in the face of an argument, those kind of things. So, when it comes right down to it, I think they did a pretty good job of taking all of these couples. It wasn't one couple, it was multiple couples, and giving us a peek into what this experiment is like for them. Now, we don't know, we don't see all the footage. Who knows what else we haven't seen? But we're getting a good mixture. And I think that was well done by Netflix. Okay, so I didn't want this review to last so long, because I have one more when part three comes out that I will be doing on this video series. So just let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know down below, and I look forward to reading your comments and commenting back to as many as possible. All right, if you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified when new videos become available. And like this video, comment down below. I love to hear your comments. I'm all about, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I'm totally cool with that. Just, I want to hear what you think about it. That's what this community, our channel, is all about, is opening up conversation. And so I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. I think all in all, they did a really good job. The people on the reality show, you could really see that they were invested. Might have taken some of them to get more invested, or some might have been more invested in the beginning, but they all have worked their way into getting invested into what they're walking down the aisle or not walking down the aisle. I mean, that's the commitment that they're making. And they're, you just can see that, they're trying. It's a tough situation. What would you do if you were in a situation where the world had changed and everybody said, from now on, you're only going to meet your prospective partner, your prospective spouse, by walking into a pod, not seeing them sight unseen, making a connection emotionally, and then getting to meet them? What kind of world would we be living in? I think that was really a great piece to this experiment or reality show. So what did you think? Let me know in the comment section below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.